Chapter 13. Who is Old Sim the Salt Peddler? Early in the morning, the birds chirped in the garden, and the maids and subordinates of the mansion finished cleaning and began to prepare breakfast. Now that Earl Sinan's daughter, Miss Fan Ruarua, had returned to Kyoto, so there was only one half-master left in the mansion, and there wasn't much to do. After all the things were done, the big maid Dahmer went to call Fan Xian to get up, who knew that seeing Fan Xian's appearance was shocked, thought that the little boy was seriously ill, hurriedly prepared to go to ask the doctor, who knew that the doctor came. After checking the pulse, said, "There is no serious problem, just don't know what he ate lately, the fire is a little bit heavy," and prescribed a few pairs of prescriptions to adjust, and then collected the money to leave. Since Fei Jiaf came to the Earl's mansion, the original Mr. Cece, a fan of the ancient school of literature, resigned from the museum and left in disgrace. As the morning breeze entered the room, Fei Jia looked at the young boy with two dark circles under his eyes in front of him, and laughed shrilly. It is said that a young man's heart is like the first sun, and that he does not know the taste of sorrow and bitterness in the world. And what is it that you are doing to make it so that you can't even sleep well, and that you have to even alarm the doctor? Fan Xian had thought about it all night, and had yet to determine whether the true qi in his body should be practiced or not, although it was in his nature to practice this nameless gong method as a game of entertainment to get rid of his endless life. But if it was a matter of life and death, he naturally had to be more cautious. He slept too little and was already in a trance, so when he heard Mr. Fei's sentence about not knowing the taste of sorrow and bitterness on earth, he subconsciously grunted, "Young people don't know the taste of sorrow and love to go up to the upper floors. I love to go up to the upper floors, in order to give new words to say sadness. Now that I know all the sadness, I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it, but I say it's a cool day and a good fall." The study was quiet all of a sudden, and not a single sound came out for half a day. Fan Xian propped up his sleepy fishy loose eyes and yawned, "Teacher, I slept too late yesterday, don't be angry." Fei Jia looked at him, subconsciously reached out to stroke his beard, unexpectedly still holding the tube of goose quill in his hand, all of a sudden killed to the top of his chin, only to wake up in pain, nerdily asked, "Just now? Those few sentences? Who wrote it?" "The bitter old Xian." Fan Xian did not even think about it, and directly reported the great name of Xian Chiji. Until this time, he realized what kind of mistake he had made. Looking into Fei Jia's glowing green eyes, Fan Xian began to speak poorly, stuttering, "Old Xian is a second-hand peddler who came to the west of the city last month to collect sea salt." "Oh, the writing is good, a trader can make this kind of writing, I don't know what the name is." "Xian." Abandonment. Fan Xian sneaked a glance. Fei Jia's demeanor had returned to normal, and he began his lessons, and in addition to Introduction to Biological Poisons, he had to teach other courses on the side, and his teaching duties were somewhat heavy. After lunch, back in his bedroom, Fan Xian finally began to face the complicated question of whether to practice or not to practice that kind of overbearing and dangerous true qi. He held that yellow book in his hands and began to fret. But before that, the first thing he had to fret about should be the words he had just accidentally practiced in his study. Ashunorishu Bashandeas Hangbi, this is Xian Chiji, was relegated to banishment after the lyric style changed from gentle to sad. Fan Xian, naturally familiar with it, just read it out casually, but did not think how much trouble it would bring to himself. Just do not know, just made up a book, just now, whether or not to deceive Mr. Fei Jia. However, judging from Fei Jia's expression at the time, he should have believed that the original author was a sea salt trader. Fan Xian didn't have any moral cleanliness, let alone thinking that plagiarizing the poems of his predecessors was such a disgusting thing. In his opinion, since these poems were things that only he knew, it would be a waste if he didn't make use of them. During the first few years of his arrival in this world, he had enough time to think about how he would survive in this world, and the promising job of literary copyist killed its way into his plans without hesitation, and firmly took its glorious place in the top 3. Fan Xian had been hypnotizing himself when he was conceptualizing this paragraph. He was not a yeoman, he was a purveyor of the earth's cultural heritage, a preserver, a great sharingist. But he didn't want to copy it like this, didn't want to copy it here and now, in his imagination, at least to write anything, he would have to use the names of those ancestors in the original world as pen names. Just as today in the study, a 5-year-old child, to copy, you also go to copy Luo Bin Wang, that white hair floating green water, to go, goose goose goose, that call how cheerful, how in line with their own plan W in the child prodigy model. And at such a young age, if you hummed out the words, I want to talk about it, but it's a nice cool autumn. Such words, then it is no longer a child prodigy, it is the heavenly mountain child grandmother, the appearance of a man, but inside there are 365 fissures, each fissure on the book of spring, summer, autumn, and winter words, vicissitudes of life to the demon. Fan Xian was thinking about all of this, but on the other hand, according to the biological clock that had stabilized like a mountain over the years, he slept beautifully, and began to meditate and cultivate that true qi that was incomparably menacing and overbearing in Fei Jia's eyes and his dreams again. It was also from this day onwards that Fan Xian resigned himself to his fate, since sleeping was practicing, let's practice, and let's talk about it one day when he really explodes. While Fan Xian was taking his nap, teacher Fei Jia was in his room continuing to write the letter that he hadn't finished last night. There were a few lines of handwriting on the letter paper that had dried through and should have been left behind last night. This child is overly beautiful, overly bold, overly intelligent, overly persistent, and overly mature. If all the 5-year-old boys in Qingwu stood together, he would definitely hide at the end of the crowd, but he would also definitely be found the fastest. Judging from this year together, in the future the master's family property, it is most appropriate for him to inherit. It is just a pity that his identity, this is the biggest problem. The handwriting ended here. It was when he was writing here last night that Fan Xian began to ask him for advice on true qi. Fei Jia sighed, thinking of the words he had heard Fan Xian read in the morning in the study, and after settling his mind slightly, he began to continue writing on the letter paper again. I want to talk about it, but the sky is cooler and better in the fall. Recently these years, the ancient language is declining, today's language is in the way. It is really hard to believe that from the mouth of a 5-year-old child. It is also hard to believe that it is a businessman to write out. Moreover, the little master was talking back at that time, and there was a slight sense of panic in his eyes, which was seldom seen in the course of even a year of living together. The biggest problem is that I stay with him every day, and I don't even know when that Xianqiji secretly met with him. At the end of the letter, he solemnly wrote, "Have the people of Dongshan Road find out who that sea salt merchant named Xianqiji really is, what exactly is the reason for his contact with the young master, and why would the young master be alarmed by these few words? This matter is very urgent, do it quickly." Writing down the deformed signature drop, Fei Jia put aside his pen. A few days later, the Kyoto supervisory yuan began to send out secret agents to look for a sea salt merchant in a big way, as a result of which a lot of private salt dealers were detected, and set off several high-ranking officials in the eastern part of the kingdom of Qing dynasty. The results were remarkable, but the merchant surnamed Xian has not been found, and according to Kyoto's rumor mill, that the supervisory yuan's president Chen, who puts all the world in fear, was so furious because of this matter, that the whole court was punished with a paid penalty for 3 months, and the secret agents were claimed all over the world, and their eyes showed ferocious glints. Heaven bless the poor man in this world. Also called Xianqiji.